What's up, Logic fans? Welcome to our second video on 4.3. This is video 4.3b, and we're continuing our discussion of the mechanics of the universal quantifier and how we use it to construct quantificational sentences. So, this expression right here is in fact a quantificational sentence. Let's build it up from the ground together, and so we can see some of the aspects of this rather lengthy quantificational sentence rule, but it's actually it's a lot easier than it looks. So in order to build this sentence up from scratch, okay, we've got to start with, FA, let's say, and that would be QS1. And then let's go ahead and do GA, just for the sake of argument here. You could do GB in this particular case, and I'll point that out shortly. But you might try to build this construction up in this type of way, all right? And so you've got QS3 on lines 1 and 2, all right? And then, of course, what you want to do is we want to attach the universal quantifier to this sentence right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this sentence, right? We're going to surround it in parentheses. For readability, I'm going to use brackets here, okay? So we're going to surround that whole sentence in parentheses, and what we're going to do is we're going to prefix the entire unit with a universal quantifier. In this case, since neither x, y, nor z appears in here, we have our choice. But since the sentence asks for x, it wants it in terms of x, we're going to do it in terms of x. It's legit to do it in terms of y, if you like. And we're going to say that was QS7. Sorry, we're not quite done yet, but that was QS7 on line 3. But remember, we have to replace at least one token of the individual constant that appears here. There's only one of them, A, with the individual variable we've used, which in this case is x. And since, I have my pick, I could do it to either the F or the G. Okay, but the sentence that I'm trying to build wants it on the G here, so I'm going to replace it there. Okay, and that's QED. Okay, this is a construction of how you can build this particular sentence from scratch using QS7, and I hope that that's making some sense to you a little bit more about what all this means and how you can use it. Let me handle and try to anticipate a couple of questions you might have. So one question is, Ash, could I have, in principle, have done this, right? And I tried to make it clear, but yeah, this would be a legitimate application of QS7. It does not yield this particular sentence, so it's not a demonstration of this sentence, but as an application of QS7, is that okay? And the answer is yes, that is absolutely okay. Another question I sometimes get is, Ash, could I have replaced both of these? Could I replace both of these with x? And absolutely you could, okay? Absolutely you could, yes. So notice it says at least one token of it. You can do at least one, okay? Another question I often get is, could I have built it this way? Could I have put the b here, right? And if I had the b there, could I have done that? And yes, you absolutely could do that, but then you could not replace both, because you have different, individual constant types here, right? So you can replace as many individual constant tokens of the same type as you like, but you can't do it across different types of individual constants. Like here, you could not do this, okay? That would be illegitimate. You could not do that, okay? But if A appears in both spots, right, then you are, or if B appeared in both spots, you are free to do both if you like. Okay, so I hope that that's clear for you. So let's go ahead and try another one together. Okay, so this one in some ways is the opposite, right? A second ago we had the A here and the X here. Now I've got the X here and the A here, and this is a sentence, and your task is to prove that it's a sentence. So see if you can prove that this is a sentence. You're going to have to use QS7 at least once to do it. Pause and try that now, and then we'll do it together. Okay, hopefully you've had a chance to pause, okay, but we're going to start off with FA. Now, some students want to start off, I'll just start with FX. Can't do that. Okay, we're using quantificational sentences. So this says if alpha is a quantificational sentence, not a form. This is a form. Okay, you can't do that. So like you know, some students would be tempted, for example, to do like this. Okay, that doesn't quite work, right? Because I mean, notice you have to replace at least one token of the individual constant, and there's no individual constant that appears here. It's an individual variable. So it's got to be a form, or sorry, it's got to be a sentence, not a form. So let's go ahead and start with FA. And you could do GA or GB if you want, okay? And these are both QS1. This is QS1. And then we can bring them together like this. And that would be QS3 on lines 1 and 2. And then hopefully you can finish it from here. Pause it if you haven't gotten this far yet. But we can absolutely just build this whole thing, right? So what the rule says, one more time, let's walk through it really slowly together, is if I surround an entire quantificational sentence with parentheses. So let's surround this entire quantificational sentence with parentheses. And I prefix the entire unit with an individual, with a universal quantifier in terms of some individual variable. In this case, we're going to use x because that's what it asks for, and it doesn't appear in the sentence in question. And we replace at least one token of an individual constant type appearing in our sentence. In this case, it's only a, so we got to replace at least one token. Okay, we'll make it this one just because that's what we're trying to build, is this guy. Then we can go ahead and do that provided we make no other changes, so we didn't start adding stuff in randomly. Okay, so QS7 on line 3, and that's QED, and you can absolutely build that. And it would have worked also, right, if you had done this, if you had done the B here, okay, as an example, you would have gotten the B here. You're not allowed to make any other changes, and so this would have been a legitimate use of QS7, but notice it would not get you this thing, which is what you were asked to prove. And so we can put our A's back in here. Some students will wonder, well, if I had started with, you know, a C here, would that have worked? And yeah, notice the C would have worked, but you could not have replaced both the C and the A here if you wanted to. Okay. We don't need to in this case, so it's not a big deal. But if you wanted to replace both the X on the F and the G in one go, then you would have had to have made them both C or both A, like this, for example, and then you could do this if you liked. Okay, so that's pretty simple. Let me give you one to try on your own now that you've seen a couple. So actually, just on this note, so that you're catching everything I'm saying, go ahead and prove that this is in fact a sentence. Okay, so pause now and give that a shot. Okay, hopefully you've had a chance, but you know what we're going to do is we're going to build FA, and that's going to be QS1. Okay, then we're going to build G, and then should I use B here, or what do you think? Okay, I should not use B here. It's legitimate for me to do it, but in this particular case, I don't want to because I want the X in both places. I need the A to match, okay? So we're going to do FA and GA, and that's QS3 on lines 1 and 2, all right? And then, of course, what we're going to do is, once again, is we're going to surround the entire unit with parentheses, which is going to give us this construction here, and we're going to prefix the whole thing with a universal quantifier. Doing it in terms of X is fine because X does not appear here. If X did appear here, we could not go to X. We would have to go to Y or to Z, or we'd have to use a subscript. And we have to replace at least one token, but in this case we want to do both. So that's what we're going to do here, and we're going to write QS7 on line 3. And that's QED there, okay? And that is absolutely a legitimate construction, and it shows that this is in fact a quantificational sentence because it can be built up from our rules, including this new rule that allows us to attach universal quantifiers in this precise way. And indeed, in only this way. This is the only way we can do it. It's the only rule we have for attaching universal quantifiers. let's try a harder case, okay? So in this case, and again, you're probably wondering, what does on earth does that mean? We'll get to that in 4.4. In order to understand what it means better, it's better if you first understand how these things are constructed properly. So let's go through this together now. You can pause and give this a shot on your own, but we've got these multiple stacked universal quantifiers here. So prove that this is in fact a quantificational sentence. Pause now. Okay, hopefully you've had a chance to pause and think on this, all right? But we're going to do QS1. GB is going to give us Q, and again, I want to emphasize, okay, we are using we're using sentences here, not forms. Do not make this an X, do not make this a Y, all right? It has to be, our rule says, it's got to be a quantificational sentence, not a form. 4.1, not 4.2, okay? All right, so we've got a sentence here, all right? And we've got a sentence here, and we're going to combine them because this is the thing we're trying to build up here. So we're going to do G B here, and that's going to give us quantificational sentence 3 on lines 1 and 2. All right, same old, same old. And now what we're going to do is we're going to apply QS7 twice. So we're going to take this guy, and we're going to append the whole thing in parentheses, like such. And what we're going to do is we're going to append the X here, which is fair. There's no X that appears in here. All right. And then what we're going to do is we're going to replace one of these with an X, and we're entitled to do that. And in fact, we have to replace at least one of them with an X. Which one should we do? Well, we're free under the rule to do whichever one we want, but since we're trying to build this construction, we're going to do it here, okay? So that's quantificational sentence 7 on line 3, okay? And then what we're going to do, okay, is we're going to apply quantificational sentence 7 rule to this sentence. And we're going to replace, notice, at least one U, an individual constant, right? And there's only one left here, all right? So we're going to take this whole unit, we're going to append the whole thing in parentheses, so you could think of it like this if you wanted, okay? And then we're going to prefix the whole thing with a universal quantifier in terms of an individual variable that does not already occur in here. Y does not occur in here, so we're free to use it. Notice you could not do this because this already occurs here, okay? So you got to go to Y, all right? Or you could go to Z, but since this example wants it in terms of Y, that's what we're going to do. And typically we omit this parenthesis in cases like this. That's just a notational convenience. So we build that, and we've got to replace one of our individual constant tokens with an individual variable that we just tacked on here. So it's going to be the Y, not the X again. That's the Y, and that's going to be QS7 on line 4. Now, this is a total demonstration that this is in fact a quantificational sentence. It can be built up from our rules, QS1 through QS7. And repeated application of them and nothing else. Okay, so it's kind of interesting. Some students ask, Ash, if I had used the A here, would this have worked? And yeah, absolutely, that would work in this case. It says you have to replace at least one token. It doesn't say you have to replace every token, okay? But as a general strategy, when I'm sort of looking ahead at things, right? So when we started just looking at this guy, I was just sort of thinking, okay, I'm going to let my X be A, and I'm just going to adopt that convention to help myself, and I'm going to let all my Y's be B's, and typically I let all my Z's be C's, just so I know what I'm replacing with what. Some people want to start with the Y and then put the X. You have to build it in this particular order, all right? You want to build the X first because the rule says you have to prefix the entire unit with the new universal quantifier you're introducing. So you couldn't have put like the Y here and then introduce the X in between. No, you would have to take this entire unit and prefix that entire unit with the new thing, which would get you the X out here. Okay, so you want to do the X first and then prefix this entire unit, right, with a new universal quantifier Y. More to come on video 4.3c.